It didn't start with a fight. It didn't even start with suspicion, at least not the kind you can clearly define. It started with a sound, the quiet click of my laptop closing at exactly 1:36 a.m. I remember the time because I checked it twice, like somehow that detail mattered more than everything else that followed. That's when something shifted. Not dramatically, not in a way you could explain, just enough to make everything feel slightly off. My fiancée, Megan, had told me earlier that evening she was going on a girls' trip in a few days. She said it casually, like it wasn't a big deal. 3 years together, 6 months engaged, wedding deposits already paid, a venue locked in, invitations halfway designed. Everything about our life looked stable, predictable, secure, the kind of life people work toward. But something underneath that surface didn't feel right anymore. It hadn't for a while. Small things at first, things you could easily ignore if you wanted to. Late-night messages she wouldn't explain, a new passcode on her phone after years of not having one, conversations that ended mid-sentence the moment I walked into the room. It wasn't obvious enough to accuse her of anything, but it was enough to make silence feel heavier than usual. That night, she said she had an early meeting and went to bed without much conversation. I stayed up. At least that's how it looked from the outside. In reality, I just couldn't settle down. My mind kept replaying small moments, the kind you brush off during the day but can't ignore when everything is quiet. That's when I opened our shared airline account. We had used it before for trips, so it wasn't unusual for me to have access. I told myself I wasn't looking for anything specific. I just wanted reassurance, something simple, something that would confirm I was overthinking. But instead, I found a booking that didn't match anything she had told me. 1 ticket, not 3. Destination, Cancun. Departure, Friday morning. Return, Monday night. And then I saw the second name attached to the reservation. Not mine, not any of her friends. A guy from her office. Someone she had mentioned before, casually, almost dismissively. Just a coworker. I remember staring at the screen, waiting for something to change, waiting for some explanation to appear that would make it all make sense. But nothing did. The information stayed exactly the same, clear, simple, and impossible to ignore. I didn't confront her. That's what people imagine when they hear a story like this, shouting, accusations, something loud and explosive. But reality doesn't always work that way. Sometimes it gets quieter instead, controlled, almost clinical. I closed the laptop slowly and just sat there listening to the sound of her breathing from the bedroom, steady, calm, unbothered, like nothing in the world was wrong. And that contrast, that's what made it real. Because in that moment, I understood something I hadn't fully accepted before. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't confusion. This was planned. And if she could plan something like that behind my back, then whatever we had wasn't what I thought it was. So instead of reacting, I started preparing. The next morning, I acted normal. Same routine, same conversations, but internally, everything had shifted. While she was at work, I went through everything I could access. Old devices she hadn't used in months, a tablet that was still logged into her accounts, messages, transactions, small details that didn't seem important on their own, but when combined, told a complete story. And the worst part? It wasn't new. This hadn't just started. It had been going on long enough to feel normal to her, comfortable, routine. That realization hit harder than anything else, not because of what she did, but because of how easily she lived with it. I took screenshots of everything, saved messages, organized it like evidence, because that's exactly what it had become, evidence of something I didn't want to believe but couldn't deny anymore. By the time I finished, I didn't feel confused. I didn't feel uncertain. I felt something much colder, certainty. And certainty changes how you move, how you think, how you respond. I didn't yell. I didn't ask questions.
I didn't give her the chance to explain. I made a decision, quietly, completely. 2 days before the trip, I logged back into the airline account. The booking was still there. Same flight, same destination, same lie. Nothing had changed, except me. That's when I made the adjustment. I canceled her ticket. Not both, just hers. Then I rebooked a new one under her name. Same departure time, same airport. Everything identical on the surface. But the destination was different. Her parents' city. No warning, no message, no explanation. Just a quiet change that would only reveal itself when it was too late to fix. I remember sitting there after confirming it, expecting to feel something strong. Anger, satisfaction, maybe even guilt. But what I felt was something else entirely. Calm. Not peaceful calm, but controlled calm. The kind you feel when you've already accepted that something is over and you're just finishing the process. The day of the trip came and everything played out like it always did. I drove her to the airport, we talked about normal things, nothing heavy, nothing suspicious. She kissed me goodbye at the drop-off point, told me she'd text me when she landed, smiled the same way she always did, and I smiled back. That was the strangest part, how normal everything looked on the surface while everything underneath had already fallen apart. I watched her walk into the terminal, pulling her suitcase behind her, completely unaware that her plan had already been dismantled. Then I got back into my car and left. No hesitation, no second thoughts, just silence. The first call came 23 minutes later. I didn't answer. Then another, then messages, one after another, faster each time. Why is my ticket wrong? What did you do? This isn't funny. I read every message, slowly, carefully, not responding, not reacting, not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I wanted her to experience that moment, that shift, the realization that something isn't what she thought it was, the same realization I'd just had days before. But I wasn't finished. I opened a group chat, added her parents, her brother, and her, and I sent one message, just one. Megan's on her way to see you. She has something important to explain. Check your emails. And then I attached everything. Screenshots, bookings, messages, proof that didn't need interpretation or explanation. It spoke for itself. And then I blocked her number, completely. No follow-up, no argument, no closure. Because at that point, there was nothing left to say. Whatever conversation needed to happen wasn't mine anymore. That same day, I changed the locks, packed her things. Not aggressively, not emotionally, just methodically, like finishing something that had already ended long before I realized it. I had everything shipped to her parents' house. No note, no explanation, just her belongings arriving where she already was. That weekend, I went out with friends, sat there, surrounded by noise, conversations, laughter that didn't quite reach me. And somewhere in that moment, something became clear. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about getting even. It was about control, about not being the last person to know anymore. Because that's what betrayal really is. It's not just the act itself. It's the realization that everyone else seems to understand what's happening, except you. And by the time you figure it out, it's already been happening for a while. People think betrayal is loud, explosive, obvious, but it's not. It builds quietly, slowly, almost invisibly, until one day, all it takes is a single detail, one message, one booking, one name, to realize that everything you believed in was already broken. You just didn't see it yet.